You are standing at the edge of a county road outside Harlan, Kentucky, at 2 in the morning, and the fog is so thick you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. You have been walking for 20 minutes. The nearest gas station is 11 miles behind you. Your phone is dead. And then, through the white, 2 headlights appear. A bus. Moving slow. Headed your direction. And every rational part of your brain says, get on. It is the last one tonight. It is going your way. You would be home in 40 minutes. You step forward. You raise your hand. The bus stops. But there is something wrong with the people already on it. You cannot name it yet. You just feel it, the way you feel a shift in the air before a storm that hasn't announced itself. Something in the way the light catches them. Something in the way none of them are looking at you. You climb the steps anyway. This is the story of the night a bus left its route in eastern Kentucky and was found the following morning at the bottom of a river 100 miles from where it was supposed to be, with 3 people inside it who should not have been there, and 2 people who got off just in time, and a question that nobody in that county has been able to answer since. Nathan Croft had been driving the Route 47 connector for 6 years. Harlan to Cumberland, Cumberland back, the night run that kept the shift workers moving, the ones who came off the late line at the processing plant, the ones who cleaned the offices after everyone else went home. He knew every bend in that road. He knew which mile markers had bad shoulders and which bridge rattled when you hit it above 40. He knew the fog came in low between October and March and turned the headlights into 2 useless smears of yellow. He kept a thermos of black coffee in the cup holder. He kept the heat turned up 2 degrees past comfortable because he had learned, over 6 years of night runs, that warm passengers stayed quiet. He had a habit, small, automatic, the kind of habit you only notice when it stops, of checking the rearview mirror every 90 seconds. Not out of anxiety, just awareness. The way you breathe. He lived in a double-wide 3 miles east of town with a dog named Cooper and a vegetable garden he tended with more care than most people gave anything. His sister called him every Sunday from Columbus. He went to the same Waffle House every Saturday morning and ordered the same thing and sat in the same booth by the window that looked out onto the interstate access ramp, and he watched the trucks pull in and out, and he felt a specific quiet satisfaction that most people mistake for loneliness but is actually something closer to peace. That is who Nathan Croft was on the night of November 14th. He was a man who knew his road. His conductor that night was a woman named Heather Goss, 26, 1 year into the job, studying for her nursing boards on the overnight shifts. She kept her textbooks in her bag and read them in the glow of her phone between stops. She was not frightened of the dark. She was not frightened of much. She had grown up in Pike County and learned early that the mountains here kept their own counsel, and the best thing you could do was pay attention and not assume you knew what was coming. Heather had a habit of humming without realizing she was doing it. Quietly, under her breath. Nathan had mentioned it to her exactly once, in their first week working together, and she had been mortified, and he had told her it did not bother him at all, and she had kept doing it because she genuinely could not stop, and he had never mentioned it again. That detail matters. You will understand why. They had 2 passengers when the night started. A couple, Marcus and Dana, maybe late 30s, dressed like they had come from something nicer than where they ended up, sitting directly behind Nathan, close to the door. And in the back, facing each other across the aisle, a woman named Nora Elkins and a young man she did not know, a man of about 22 whose name she would later give to the responding officer as Tyler, though she could not be certain. Nora Elkins was 67 years old. She had grown up in Harlan County, left for 20 years, come back, and learned things in the second half of her life that she had not been taught in the first. She did not advertise this. She carried it quietly, the way you carry something heavy that you have stopped noticing you are carrying. The bus moved through the fog. The road was dark. There was no ambient light out here, no subdivisions, no Walmart signage bleeding orange into the sky, just the absolute black of mountain road in November. Marcus and Dana spoke to each other in low voices. Tyler looked out the window at nothing. Heather hummed. Nathan drove. Then the couple stood up and said this was their stop. Nathan pulled over at the junction where Route 47 met the old logging road, a specific turn that the locals called the Fork, though it appeared on no map with that name. Marcus and Dana got off. The door closed. The bus pulled forward. And the fog, which had already been bad, became something else entirely. Nathan turned on his fog lights. They were already on. He slowed to 15 miles per hour. The road was still there. He could feel it under the wheels, but he could not see it. He could see approximately 8 feet of pavement in front of the bus and nothing beyond that. He told his passengers, quietly and without alarm, that conditions were serious and he was considering taking the alternate route, the longer way around, adding 25 minutes to the run, but a straighter road with better shoulders. Nora Elkins said yes. Take the alternate route. Tyler agreed. But something happened then that Nathan would not have been able to fully explain. He kept moving forward. Not toward the alternate route. Toward the fog. He would say later, in a version of events that Nora Elkins recounted to the officer, because Nathan would not be saying anything to anyone after that night, that it had felt like the road made the decision. That he had intended to turn and simply had not. The bus continued on its original path. And 3 miles later, in the middle of the road, in the complete whiteout dark, Nathan applied the brakes. There were 3 people standing in the fog. Tyler was the one who reacted first. He came halfway out of his seat and shouted at Nathan, "What are you doing? You cannot stop out here. It is 2 in the morning. It is not even a stop." But Nathan had already opened the door. And the 3 of them came up the steps before anyone could say another word. Nora saw them the way you see something in your peripheral vision that your eyes refuse to bring into focus directly. 2 on the outside. 1 in the middle, held between the other 2, his arms draped over their shoulders, his head low, his hair hanging forward over his face in a curtain that covered everything. The outer 2 wore clothes that looked wrong in a way that Nora could not immediately name. Not dirty. Not torn. Just wrong. The kind of wrong that takes a moment to register because your brain is busy rejecting what it is already seeing. Like clothes from a photograph of someone else's family. Like clothes from a time before you were born that someone had tried to recreate from memory. The man in the middle was not walking. He was being carried. And the way his arms lay over the other 2, the angle was not right. The weight distribution was not right. When you have held someone who has lost consciousness, you know the specific dead weight of it, the particular way a body surrenders its own geometry. This was not that. This was something that had not been a standing person for a very long time being arranged to look like one. Nora said nothing. She watched. The conductor went over to them. Heather, professional, unrattled in the way 26-year-olds who have not yet learned what there is to be rattled about are unrattled. She asked if everything was all right. One of the 2 outer figures, Nora would later describe this one as seeming to communicate without moving its mouth, though she admitted she could not be certain, appeared to respond. Heather nodded. She came back and told Tyler, who had watched this whole exchange from his seat with white knuckles, that they were probably from the community theater over in Lynch. There was a production running this week. They had likely had a long night. It was a perfect explanation. It covered everything. That was when Nora stopped being uneasy and became afraid. Because a conductor who rides this road every night does not volunteer reassurances about strangers unless she herself needs reassuring. And a good explanation that arrives too quickly, already fully formed, already covering every visible wrong, that is not a reassurance. That is a door being held shut. Nora sat with her hands folded in her lap and watched the three figures from the corner of her vision. She did not look at them directly. She had learned, over 67 years, that certain things noticed you back when you looked at them directly. She watched the window reflection instead. She waited. The fog moved. The bus moved through it. And then a draft came through the bus. Not from a window. Not from the heating system. A draft from somewhere that should not have had air moving through it. The hair of the figure in the middle lifted. And Nora saw what was not there. Not a face looking the wrong way. Not a face obscured. Not an injury or a deformity. The absence of a face entirely. Skin, if it was skin, smooth and unbroken from the hairline to the jaw. No eyes. No mouth. No nose. Just the forward surface of a head from which everything that makes a head a face had been subtracted. Nora looked down. Slowly. The way you make yourself look when you already know what you will see. None of the three figures had feet. They ended at the ankle. Not resting on the floor. Not touching the floor at all. Just ending. Hanging in the space above the floor at the height where feet should have been. The bus hit its brakes, a cat in the road, Nathan would tell the officer, a black cat, which is the kind of detail you put in a report when you are trying to sound rational about something that was not rational at all, and Nora used the momentum. She fell against Tyler deliberately, then cried out about her purse, then accused him of taking it, loudly, insistently, in the way of a woman who has decided that a scene is the only available exit. Tyler was confused. Tyler was frightened. Tyler said he had not taken anything, offered to be searched, looked to Heather for help. Nora kept going. She was so good at it, so genuinely specific, so accurately humiliated, so believably outraged, that it took 30 seconds before Nathan pulled over and, gently, suggested the two of them might want to continue this conversation at the sheriff's substation just a mile down the road rather than on the bus. And from the back, as Nora and Tyler stepped off, she heard it. Laughter. Not from the two outer figures. From the middle one. From the faceless one. The sound came from a place where a mouth was not. The door closed. The bus pulled away. Nora stood in the fog on the shoulder of the road with Tyler staring at her, and she waited until the taillights disappeared. Then she told him. All of it. Tyler did not speak for a long time after she finished. The fog was close around them. The road was empty in both directions. He finally asked her how she had known to look at their feet. She told him that when something is wrong with a face, the face is usually the thing hiding it. You look at the feet. They walked to the substation. Nora told the night deputy everything. He listened in the way people in official positions listen to the things they cannot put in a report: patient, careful, not unkind, and ultimately unable to do anything with it. He took their contact information. He said he would keep an eye on the route. He did not dispatch anyone that night. That was his decision. That was the decision he would carry. By morning, Nathan had not returned to the depot. The bus had not been seen on any camera past the point where Nora and Tyler exited. This should not have been possible. The county had installed cameras on every major road junction after the flooding 4 years prior. There was not a mile of Route 47 between the Fork and the Cumberland city limits that wasn't covered. But the bus appeared on camera at the junction where Marcus and Dana had gotten off, and then, at the next camera, 1.4 miles ahead, the road was empty. No bus. No fog. Just road. The search took most of the next day. It was not until the following morning, November 16th, nearly 36 hours after the bus departed, that a state trooper found it. Not in Harlan County. Not on Route 47. 107 miles away, in the Cumberland River, 3 miles east of the Barberville Bridge. The bus had run out of fuel. The tank was bone dry. It should not have been possible for the bus to travel 107 miles on what remained in the tank after a standard night run on a 40-mile route. The math did not work. The investigators checked the math 4 times. The math did not work. They found 3 people inside the bus: Nathan Croft, Heather Goss, and the figure from the middle, the one that had been carried on by the other 2, still seated in the back, still in those wrong clothes, still with its head down and its hair forward. The responding officers could not subsequently describe the middle figure with any consistency. Their reports vary in ways that suggest they were not all looking at the same thing. One report describes a male, approximately 30 to 40 years of age, in period costume. Another describes what appears to be a mannequin. A third leaves the description column blank. Nathan and Heather had been gone for less than 2 days. The condition of what was found inside that bus was consistent, according to the county medical examiner, with significantly longer than 2 days. She could not account for it. She wrote in her report that the findings were inconsistent with known parameters of decomposition under the given environmental conditions. She listed the water temperature. She listed the elapsed time. She noted the discrepancy without resolution. The other 2 passengers, the ones who came on at the stop before Nathan let Marcus and Dana off, were never identified. They were never seen again. The seats they had occupied were clean. Not wiped clean. Clean in the way of something that had never been sat in. The bus itself, when they pulled it from the river, was running. The engine was running. The fuel gauge read empty. The engine was running. The key was in the ignition and the engine had not been turned off. It ran for another 22 minutes on the bank of that river before the investigators thought to turn it off. None of them wanted to reach past the steering wheel to do it. This is in the report. This specific reluctance is documented. Nora Elkins was contacted by the investigating detective 3 weeks after the incident. She answered every question. She confirmed everything she had seen. She was not dismissed, which surprised her. She was told, carefully, that her account was consistent with certain other details that the investigation had surfaced. She asked what other details. The detective told her that there was a record of 3 individuals who had not survived an incident at that same location, the exact stretch of Route 47 between the fork and the spot where Nathan stopped in the winter of 1961. They had been traveling on a similar route, on a night with similar fog. Their remains were found in the same river, 104 miles from where they started. The bus in that case was also still running when they found it. Nora sat with the phone against her ear for a long time after the detective finished speaking. Outside her kitchen window, the November light was coming in low and gray the way it does in Harlan in the weeks before the solstice. Her coffee was cold. She had been holding it without drinking it for the entire conversation. She asked the detective one question before they ended the call. She asked if the conductor in 1961 had hummed. The detective did not know what she was asking. She said it again. She asked if any witness account from 1961 mentioned the conductor on that bus humming. There was a long pause. The detective said he would look into it and call her back. He never called her back. Nora Elkins still lives in Harlan County. She does not take late buses. She has told this story twice, once to her nephew, once to a woman she met at a church parking lot on the Sunday after the funerals, who had also been on Route 47 that night and pulled over before reaching the stretch of road where it happened, for reasons she could not fully articulate, and had sat in her car with the doors locked for 45 minutes before driving home a different way. Nora said the same thing to both of them. She said, when something is wrong, the face is the thing doing the hiding. Always look at the feet. She said, Heather Goss hummed. Every night on that bus. She hummed without knowing she was doing it. And when those three came up the steps, there was not a sound in that bus. Not from Heather. Not from anywhere. The humming had stopped before the door opened. Nora had noticed. She had noticed, and she had not known yet what she was noticing. It was only later, sitting on the shoulder of the road in the fog, listening to the taillights disappear, that she understood what the silence had been telling her. Heather had already known something was wrong. And she had smiled at them anyway. And she had explained them away. And she had hummed no more. There is a specific kind of fear that this story touches, not the fear of the dark, not the fear of the stranger, but something older and more precise. The fear that the people who are supposed to be keeping you safe have already been reached. That the reassurance you needed was designed specifically to disarm you. That the one who smiled and said everything is fine was the one who already knew that nothing was. We talk about trust as though it is fragile. As though betrayal comes from malice or indifference. But the worst kind, the kind this story is made of, comes from someone who had no choice. Someone who may have already been what they needed to be in order to help what was using them. Heather Goss studied for her nursing boards on overnight buses. She wanted to save people. She was 26 years old. There are nights, sitting in a quiet house in the dark, when you wonder about the decisions you make automatically. The bus you got on without thinking. The turn you took because it felt right. The voice that told you everything was fine. And you wonder, at what point does the reassurance become the danger? At what point was the door already open?